We're going to take a look at a mock draft. Before free agency, this is Jordan Reed's two-round mock draft, ESPN. He has the Browns taking a wide receiver at 54, Malachi Corley. Browns wide receiver room lacks depth outside of Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. Corley is a sure-handed tackle breaker who could thrive in Kevin Stefanski's offense as a jack-of-all-trades pass catcher. Take a listen to what former NFL wide receiver Steve Smith said about Corley. This is his scouting report on Malachi Corley.
There's a lot of good habits and bad habits. He's a spectacular college player. He has some great college and physical attributes that when God made him, you can't teach it. Played 40 games, 253 receptions, 2,951 receiving yards, 29 touchdowns. His good games, the three good games I've watched, and I watched some others too, Ohio State balled against him. I would have loved to see him versus Ohio State, get some opportunities to run outside a little bit more. Balled against USF. And let me tell you something about Louisiana Tech. He needs to be arrested for assault because he assaulted a guy that was just right up my alley, bro. I'm talking about just ran her over.
This is not someone who shies away from contact.
Little guy. Got the opportunity to talk to him a little bit over the weekend too, man. I'm super excited. Blocking there. His willingness to block, check. After the catch, check. After the catch, what do they call him, Coley?
I believe he calls himself the Yak God.
Oh, the Yak God. I'm going to go a king.
So, Scott, this is the guy that drew. He's from Western Kentucky, so you have questions about that, just relative to competition. Draws comparisons to Deebo Samuel. I'm careful with those kind of comparisons.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but I haven't seen him play a ton. I mean, I'm sure I saw him against Ohio State in that game, but I know I watched him a little bit at the Senior Bowl, and watching the Senior Bowl coverage, heard the analysts talk about him, and was on a conference call with Daniel Jeremiah, and then to hear Steve Smith right there, I like this guy. And if he was at 54, I think the Browns would be pleased with that. It makes sense, right? Even if it's, Deebo's a heady comparison. But that means he's strong, he can run through tackles, and he can pick up yards after catch like those guys mentioned, but you can do a lot with him, right? You can throw him a bubble screen. And the Browns tried to do that. They tried to do that with Moore, and they just didn't have that success. They've really struggled to find somebody that they can do that with. And that's such a key part of offenses nowadays, easy completions for the quarterback. I think that type of player would fit well with Deshaun Watson. The quick completions that can turn into bigger gains. So I'm really intrigued. I need to watch more tape. But I like what I hear and a little bit I've seen about Corley.
Yeah, the one part Steve Smith talking about him beforehand was they do throw him bubble screens quite a bit. They set him up to get into the secondary, and that's what he was talking about. He kind of runs over guys that are not as big as him. And, if you're looking for that, that's a skill.
Oh, it is, and that's different than what Elijah Moore gives you, right? Like, he's got the little quickness, the scat ability, but he's not breaking tackles. And we saw Cedric Tillman do that, but he's a bigger body, right? It takes him a while to get started. Corley feels different to me.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about guys that need to get deep, and I agree. Corley, again, if that is a skill that could add a dimension in addition to finding somebody that can get deep.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, he feels like he's in that ballpark around 54. And who knows, the Browns have traded out of the second round the last 2 years. But he's one of those guys that when you're talking about second-round picks, which means he's not a perfect prospect, right, if he's going to be around, in the second round of a heavy receiver draft class. But I like that idea. I like some of the other names at 54. It'll be interesting, right, how much the Browns spend in free agency, how much they wait until the draft to address that receiver room.